Some thoughts. I haven't recorded one of these in a while, and I just have some thoughts on the whole idea of muscle growth. People refer to gaining or losing muscle, and they often measure it in a number of ways. One of the ways they do so, of course, is through various body composition tools like the InBody I have, DEXA, other types, also measuring with tapes, and also using skin calipers and things like that. And I've given some thought lately about what does it mean to actually gain or lose muscle. Of course, another way to measure it is, are you getting stronger or not? Are you lifting more weights? All of those, and of course, then there's before and after photographs and just looking at yourself in the mirror and see how your clothes fit. And I think every single one of them has its advantages and its shortcomings. One of the things I think that makes this so difficult is that, first of all, what is muscle? Well, I'm not exactly sure how to give that a fair definition, but what I do know is that the size and weight of a muscle, just as when you buy a piece of meat in the grocery store, which is essentially muscle, depends on storage of water and glycogen. So glycogen, your muscles are in fact containers, and they're 70% water generally. That's, I'm sure, an estimation that varies from day to day, and they contain glycogen. So glycogen, here that sounds like glucose, it's energy that's stored in your muscles to be used for short-term needs to move around. You may have heard about distance runners who do something carb loading, where they try to get as much glycogen in their muscles as possible through manipulating diet and water and things like that the days before, for example, a marathon race, so that they don't run out of glycogen. When somebody runs out of glycogen in their muscles, and there's some stored in the liver as well, they refer to it as hitting the wall. In other words, no matter how good a shape they're in, or how much endurance they have, or how much willpower they have, when you run out of fuel, my understanding is that your body simply ran out of gas and does what a car does when it runs out of gas. Of course, you're also carrying fuel in your fat stores, and some of that can be used, but that's more longer term. And if you need to continue running at a certain pace, that's not going to happen. So depending on how much glycogen, so how do you store glycogen? How do you empty glycogen? Well, you empty glycogen when you burn it through either short-term, long-term, high-intensity exercise. You use up the fuel. Then you replenish it when you eat. And of course, certain foods, my understanding is, are more prone to it. When the runners use carb loading, they do stuff like not eat things like pasta and other starches for a few days, and then really gorge on them so that their body tissues, their muscle tissues, are really hungry for it. And so then they can store a lot of glycogen. And bodybuilders have known for years that on the day of a contest, they can manipulate how their muscles look by playing with their water retention. And in fact, that means glycogen retention as well, with their muscles looking bigger and fuller on a given day. And on that day, if they're too big and too full, then they don't have the definition that they look for. Or they can, if they want to look cut, meaning that there's separation and it looks like there's very distinct vascularity and whatnot in the muscles, they want to bring the water down. But if you have too much water down, then the muscles get too small. And things can change dramatically. And of course, other examples of this is martial artists who have to weigh in for a certain event, and I'm sure weightlifters and bodybuilders, in order to compete in a certain weight class, will, in order to make weight, really, through saunas, who knows, diuretics, whatever ways they do it, really deplete and can lose like literally 10, 12, 15 pounds in a couple of days, and then, make weight. And the very next day when they're fighting, they may have gained 5, 10 pounds or more, depending on the weight class. So the point being with all this is that when people say as a result of some modification, some variable they've changed, an exercise program, a diet, whatever, that they've gained muscle or they've lost muscle, what does it really mean? Are they actually gaining something or losing something? Or are they simply, if you think of your muscles, it's like a gas tank that's like elastic, where if the gas tank is almost empty, it shrinks. And if the gas tank fully expands, then are they actually getting bigger muscles, or are they just filling the tank and losing? And where's the distinction? Because it can go make quite a bit of difference over time. And there's an article by Tyler, I'm going to forget his last name now. It'll come to me, I'll put it in the notes if I remember, or it'll come to me before I'm finished, about how, you know, world-class bodybuilders, natural bodybuilders, feel like they're lucky if they can gain a pound of muscle per year. And many bodybuilders, I've seen pictures of people who have shown me that they have, you know, competed, pictures 7 or 8 years apart, and they say they're at the same weight, they feel they're holding the same muscle, but they look better. And they feel that there's been more development and things like that. Now, I tend to suspect that has to do with leanness, but there may be more to it than that. So the other part of it that I'm wondering about is about muscle fiber type, which you've probably all heard about: fast twitch, slow twitch, medium twitch muscle fibers. And I kind of wonder, through various exercise, various variables that you do, which over time, where you might have the same amount of muscle, whatever that is, I said, seems to be a moving target, but you may have changed the preponderance of a certain type of fiber in exchange for another type of fiber. And as a result of it, that would explain why you see people, that would be part of the explanation, is why you see people who are getting significantly stronger and yet are not getting significantly bigger, which of course is desirable if you're a weightlifter who is competing in a certain weight class, because you don't want to go up a weight class, you want to stay in the same weight class. But if you're a bodybuilder or just somebody who has hypertrophy of muscle as a goal, then that's sort of discouraging. You're getting stronger, but you don't seem like you're getting bigger muscles as a result. So, by the way, I said the muscle fiber change from fast to slower back versus only part of the explanation, because of course, when you're actually lifting more weight, a lot of this can be due to skill and neurological efficiency and things like that, where people are just getting better at bench pressing, for example, or their brain's getting better at sending the signal or whatnot, as opposed to any actual strength gains. So it's very tricky. And then, of course, you have a gene called myostatin. Myostatin is basically there to prevent you from gaining too much muscle. And why would we have this gene, and why is it so common? And main reason why very few people, even with the use of steroids, obviously that'll help, have the ability to build the kind of large, freaky muscles that you see on Bodybuilding Magazine, or that will turn heads as you're walking down the street. However, when you have animals, for example, that don't have that gene, such as Belgian blue cattle, and a famous one, there's a whippet dog who does that, they become extremely freakily muscular, even in the absence of any kind of exercise. Kind of makes you wonder if, from a survival evolutionary standpoint, whether our body's trying to tell us that having too much muscle isn't good for you in the first place. Staying strong, making sure that you maintain your functional ability, obviously can improve your quality of life, prevent you from having injuries. These types of things make you look better, depending on what your subjective views on what looks good is, and things like that. But having freakishly large muscles, maybe not. Matter of fact, somebody who does get those large muscles might actually, from an evolutionary perspective, be at a disadvantage, even though that's currently in vogue and looks good. Anyways, this is obviously just a collection of various thoughts, certainly way more questions than answers in this, but these are just my thoughts on the topic right now that makes me think that I need to keep looking for evidence, different things, because a lot of things when somebody says, you know, this guy gained this much muscle in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 5 weeks as a result of this or that program. I mean, did he, even though it may measure that way, or did he lose glycogen, get more glycogen, this type of thing? In other words, where is he going to be in a few months from now or a few years from now? I know that Eddie Mueller, for example, was featured in some books by Ellington Darden, in which he was shown to gain, you know, large amounts of muscles in 6, I forget, or 10-week programs. Right now, he was featured in a couple books. But at the beginning of one of the subsequent books, it was again, you know, Dr. Darden concedes that Eddie was unable to maintain that muscle mass in between the time when he first got it. So what happened? Because he wasn't able to train as hard, or, you know, didn't stick with it, or whatever it is, or just homeostasis came to bear, or was it just a whole lot of glycogen storage in the first place? And I don't know. So that's it. That's my 12-minute talk on that topic for now. I know a lot of people will disagree and say they know the answer, but I think there's a lot of survivorship bias, selection bias, and things that comes into play with this. And people who have large muscles, of course, figure that they know how they got it. And I think the secret to having large muscles is to have the right parents, first and foremost. And secondly, that many people who have that don't recognize that for themselves. Anyways, bye for now.